Objective. After listening to this module, you'll be able to describe some recommendations for resolving conflict. Conflict resolution tips. It's been said that arguing shouldn't always be seen as a negative element of your relationship. In fact, compared to a couple that never argues, it could be that your relationship is actually in better standing. So do you agree or disagree with this statement? Don't worry when I argue with you, worry when I stop, because it means there's nothing left to fight for. Regardless of the type of relationship, spouse, family member, coworker, etc., let's talk about some healthy ways to argue. Time out and time in. If you don't feel that you're able to maintain control of your emotions, it may be better to take a time out and talk about it later. However, you don't see a basketball team take a timeout without the clock ticking. Can you imagine if there was no time limit on those timeouts during games? If you need to take a timeout and you really don't want to discuss an issue at the moment, you need to let the person know when you will be ready to discuss it. I'm sorry, but I can't talk about this right now, but how about after dinner tonight at about 7? Make sure you're specific and clear as to when you would like the time in to occur. The mirror technique. It's estimated, again, that 1 in 5 messages that you communicate is not completely or accurately understood. The mirror technique is a technique that has been shown to result in only 1.5 errors on average out of 100 communication messages, and involves paraphrasing what the other person said. The mirror technique requires that you basically paraphrase what your partner is saying in a conflict situation. A large percentage of frustration that comes from arguing with someone is feeling like they're not listening, which results in you not feeling validated. Many times people repeat what they've said over and over and over again during an argument because they feel like the other person isn't listening and they're seeking validation. And actually, the other person probably isn't listening if they're not incorporating the mirror technique. But if the other person knows that they're going to have to paraphrase back to the other person what they said, they're going to listen much better. Having someone paraphrase back to you what you said without including his or her own personal opinions can be incredibly validating and provides a more conducive environment for resolving conflict. Here's how it works. You express your complaint or concern for 30 to 60 seconds to your partner. Definitely no more than 1 minute at a time, or else it's difficult for the person to paraphrase what you said because they can't remember everything. If you're not able to get everything out in 60 seconds, you can speak again in a minute. But it's important to only complain to the other person for no more than 1 minute at a time to prevent the other person from tuning you out. Sometimes it's much less than a minute. For example, I'm really frustrated because you ate all my ice cream, or whatever, you fill in the blank. Then the person paraphrases back to you what you said, includes their interpretation of your feelings, and ends with, "Is that right?" So what I heard you say is that you don't like it when I eat your ice cream, and you seem pretty irritated when I do this. Is that right? If you need to clarify, do so at this point. Yes, I'm frustrated that you ate my ice cream, but I want to make sure you understand that the real reason that I'm so frustrated is that this is the 5th time that you've done this, and I've asked you not to do this several times now. I feel like you disregard and disrespect my feelings. Then your partner needs to paraphrase again until he or she gets it right. It's important that the paraphraser does not include any of his or her opinions while in the paraphraser's role. So what I heard you say is that you don't like it when I eat your ice cream, and you seem pretty irritated when I do this. But you ate my ice cream before and I didn't get mad at you. As soon as the paraphraser includes his or her opinion while in the paraphraser role, it invalidates and defeats the purpose of the mirror technique. The paraphraser will have a chance to get out of the paraphraser's role and express his or her opinions, but it's essential that the paraphraser's primary responsibility is to understand the other person's opinions and not express his or her opinion. Then, if necessary, explore mutually acceptable solutions. This technique may sound complicated, but it really works as long as both people are willing to incorporate the technique. Agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Many people forget that last part, without being disagreeable. They don't know how to agree to disagree. Understanding and agreement are not necessarily synonymous terms. Understanding does not always result in agreement. You can disagree with someone but still understand their point of view or where they're coming from. Content communicator. Be a content communicator. This simply means you say what you mean and you mean what you say. A couple was on a road trip together out in the middle of the desert with the windows rolled down. The woman says to the man, "It's really hot, dear," because she wanted him to turn on the air conditioning. The man, thinking he was being an empathetic listener, says, "It really is," and they drive on. She was horrified that he didn't turn the air conditioner on. She thought she'd give him one more chance. They were driving out in the middle of nowhere when the woman sees a convenience store up ahead. She says to the man, "Honey, I'm really thirsty." In her mind, if he doesn't stop, she thinks, he doesn't love me, he never cared. He was tried and convicted in the court of her mind. She thinks that she shouldn't have to tell him. He should know her well enough to read her mind. She believes if you have to ask, it doesn't count. A content communicator would say, "Can we stop so that I can get a drink at the 7-Eleven up ahead?" There are no expectations of someone being able to read your mind. Doesn't it make much more sense and save time and energy to simply say, "Let's stop at the convenience store up ahead so I can get a drink," instead of, "Honey, I'm really thirsty"? Stephen Covey has said we create many negative situations by simply assuming that our expectations are self-evident and that they're clearly understood and shared by other people. Even though other people may play a role in your level of stress, having people in your life is not only inevitable, it's actually healthy. Lack of social contacts was found to be a stronger risk factor for colds than smoking. It was also found to be a stronger risk factor for colds than low vitamin C intake or even elevated stress hormones. Researchers say that interacting with a broad array of individuals likely tempers a person's physical response to stressful situations. So it's good to have people in your life, but sometimes, yes, it can be frustrating. Key points. Take a time out and a time in when dealing with conflict. Use the mirror technique. Agree to disagree, but in an agreeable manner. Be a content communicator. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Despite the fact that others can be a major source of stress for you, it's actually healthy to have people in your life. And that's it.